I've seen a couple other things. I've got to rant a little bit about this one particular movie I saw, Aelita, Queen of Mars. So this is the film that Dennis James was doing.
Doing the piano.
So Dennis James does this big event every year with organ music in the auditorium. And the last couple of years, he's sort of invited this friend who does electronic music to do like sound effects and stuff. So he'll have like drum sounds, and he can have lightning sounds or laser sounds or whatever the heck he wants.
And it tends to be towards like Halloween-oriented silent films, right?
Yeah, so
okay.
horror films. So this year he did a sci-fi film, not really horror-related at all. Not even like a sci-fi horror or something like that, but really just straight-up sci-fi. So this is a film from 1924 from Russia. So it's right after the Bolshevik Revolution. It's right at the start of communism. And this film it's also right at the start of film storytelling. And it's totally baffling. It does not make any sense for about 90% of the movie. So this movie is part Dr. Zhivago, except positive about Soviet Union, not negative. It's part Metropolis, and at the end of it, it turns into Battleship Potemkin. It's kind of amazing, but so I'm going to just run you through the plot of this movie because I just have to. I can't continue on living without explaining the plot of this movie.
Well, without much going on in it, of course.
Yeah. So this engineer in Russia hears a Morse code signal, and it comes up with this weird set of words that don't mean anything. And so everyone's trying to figure out what it means. And somebody next to the engineer jokingly says, "Ha ha ha, maybe it came from Mars." And so then he's like, "Of course it came from Mars." So then his life's work is to find a way to get to Mars. So he starts, working on a way to get to Mars.
Mars.
Exactly. So as he's doing this, there are like 10 other stories that have nothing to do with the main story happening. So there's a story about a guy in a hospital who just came back from the war. Nothing to do with the main story. There's like other stories of people doing other things that don't have anything to do with the story, and they all have specific names. And it was almost like the title cards made it worse. Like the title cards in a silent movie are supposed to like explain what's happening and like make you understand and be like, oh, okay. These just made it worse. It was like they would explain something, you'd be like, okay, and then it would cut to a scene and you'd be like, I don't even know what's happening right now. This is all interspersed with scenes from Mars. So the people on Mars are up there on Mars, and they have this telescope that they can look down on Earth. So the Queen of Mars, who does not rule anything, she's just a figurehead. There's a council of elders or something that rules Mars, and she's sort of like locked away and can't really get to the telescope that often. She goes to the telescope and sees the engineer. And so she gets obsessed with him, of course. And what she sees, the first thing she sees of him is that he kisses a girl. And this is the best line in any movie ever, and I will take this to my grave. She turns to the guy next to her and she says, "Touch your lips to mine like they do on Earth."
Nice.
I was like, oh, that's just hilarious. That's just so funny that's the line. I just love that that's the way they described that. So anyways, it goes on, and it's really confusing. And then there's an intermission. And then after the intermission, it actually all kind of, like, they narrow it down. And it all kind of makes sense. So the guy, he goes off to, like, he sort of gives up on his Mars thing because he can't figure it out. And he goes away to work on, rebuilding Russia after this huge long war they've just had, to sort of, the revolution. And then he comes back and he picks up his research. And, of course, it's basically done. He left because he couldn't figure it out. But now he comes back and he can just, okay, of course. Duh.
I just had to sit on it.
Yeah.
Well, now Mars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he gets back. He thinks his wife is cheating on him. So he shoots her. And then...
It's very Russian.
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. And then he puts on a disguise to disguise himself as a friend of his who's left the country or left the area that he is sort of in. And then he ends up... it's so funny because everyone just buys it. Like, he's got a beard on. It's like, oh, well, obviously that's the guy. That's like if everyone looked at Sean and was like, totally different to guy. If you were like, I'm my twin brother, Bill Connolly. And then everyone would be like, right on.
You got it. Let's roll.
So then he, of course, just does the spaceship, gets to Mars, takes a couple other people with him. One of them is a soldier that was one of the stories earlier. And then he gets to Mars and, meets the Queen. And literally within like 20 minutes, the soldier has discovered that they keep slaves on Mars, like the ruling class keeps slaves on Mars. So what he does is he gives them a single speech about how great communism is.
Oh, no.
The workers immediately rise up and take over everything. This all happens in like 5 minutes of screen time.
Right. Battleship.
Wow.
And now Battleship Potemkin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then the Queen sort of, now all the soldiers have overthrown the council and she's in charge. And so she is like professed her love to this engineer, and the engineer's like, yes, I love you too. And then she says, finally, it's all mine now. I can rule all by myself. So he kills her.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's not a very Russian value.
That's what a good communist would do. Then he wakes up because everything after he shot at his wife was all a dream.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah. So... yeah, and then he goes back to his wife. It turns out he missed her, didn't actually hit her with the firing of the gun at her. Great resolution to your story.
Who doesn't dream of killing their spouse? Right?
Exactly.
Magically married again.
But, I mean, it's got such cool special effects, but the movie's totally baffling. And I would go so far as to say it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's Aelita, Queen of Mars. I don't feel bad about spoiling it because it's not like it's on Netflix or anything. You're not going... yeah, and by the way, you're going to turn it off after the first 10 minutes. So I don't feel bad at all about spoiling it. The other thing I want... A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.